I was relaxing in the living room, enjoying the latest episode of Yellowstone, 1923, when my mother-in-law suddenly stormed in, her face flushed with anger. She demanded I transfer my $5 million inherited house to my husband's name. Calmly but firmly, I refused, explaining it was a gift from my late father and I wouldn't give it up. Her fury boiled over as she called my husband into the room. She whispered something to him, and his expression turned cold and menacing. Without warning, he grabbed the television and smashed it over my head. Pain shot through me as blood streamed down my face. Dazed and desperate for help, I begged for mercy, but he grabbed my arm and dragged me out of the house. Shaking and terrified, I called my brother for help. But when he arrived, what happened next was even worse than I could have ever anticipated. My name is Leela Reed. I'm 27 years old and a freelance writer. I live in the house my father built, a beautiful $5 million property in Portland. It's not just a house, it's his legacy. My father spent years designing every detail, pouring his heart into making it perfect. When he passed away, he left it to me, ensuring I'd always have a place to call my own. The house means everything to me. It's a reminder of the love and care my father gave throughout his life. From the wooden beams he sanded by hand to the lush garden he planted, every corner holds a memory of him. Even now, years after his passing, walking through the house feels like he's still with me. I never imagined that inheriting this house would someday become the source of so much conflict. But back then, life was simpler, and I didn't see what was coming. This house wasn't just my sanctuary, it was also the foundation for a future I didn't yet understand. Let me know if you'd like me to continue with Chapter 2. 3 years ago, I met Evan Carter at a networking event in Portland. He was 31, a financial analyst, and had a confidence that drew people to him. He was charming, attentive, and made me feel like I was the only person in the room. Our connection was instant. Conversations flowed effortlessly, and within weeks, he was a regular presence in my life. He made grand gestures, like surprising me with flowers and planning romantic dinners. I felt like I had found someone who truly understood me. 6 months after we met, Evan proposed during a quiet dinner at my favorite restaurant. It felt like a dream, and I said yes without hesitation. My friends called us the perfect couple, and at the time, I believed it too. After our wedding, Evan moved into my father's house with me. At first, it felt like a fairy tale. He admired the house, often complimenting its beauty and saying how lucky we were to live there. I felt proud to share this special part of my life with him. But the fairy tale didn't last long. Small cracks started to show, things I dismissed at first, thinking they were normal adjustments to married life. Looking back, they were warning signs I chose to ignore. Not long after the wedding, Evan suggested that his mother, Patricia, move in with us temporarily. He said she needed support after a difficult year and promised it would only be for a short time. I agreed, wanting to support him, but I soon regretted that decision. Patricia arrived with her sharp tongue and an air of authority. She was in her late 50s, retired, and seemed to believe she was entitled to run our household. From the moment she stepped through the door, it was clear she didn't see this as my home. She criticized everything. The way I decorated, the meals I cooked, even how I folded the laundry. "This house is too big for someone like you to manage," she said one evening as I prepared dinner. Her words stung, but I bit my tongue for Evan's sake. At first, Evan dismissed my concerns. "She's just trying to help," he'd say, brushing off her harsh remarks. But as time went on, he started siding with her more often. "She's right, Leela. Maybe you should listen to her advice." Her presence became unbearable. No matter how hard I tried to please her, it was never enough. She acted as though the house was hers, and Evan let her. Slowly, I began to feel like a stranger in my own home. Patricia's influence on Evan grew stronger with each passing day. What started as small disagreements turned into constant tension. I would cook meals she didn't approve of, and she would openly criticize me in front of Evan. "You should learn how to cook properly," she'd say with a pointed look. Evan, instead of defending me, would nod in agreement. Her interference wasn't limited to the kitchen. She began making decisions about the house without consulting me, rearranging furniture, replacing decorations, and even hiring cleaners without my permission. Every change felt like an erasure of my father's legacy, but Evan insisted it wasn't a big deal. "You're overreacting, Leela," he said one evening when I tried to talk to him about how she was undermining me. "She's only trying to make things better." It hurt to see how easily he dismissed me. The man who once promised to stand by me now seemed to prioritize his mother's opinions over mine. I tried to adapt, to keep peace in the house, but it only made things worse. The more I gave in, the more control Patricia took. My moments of peace grew fewer and fewer. I would steal small breaks to watch my favorite TV show, Yellowstone, 1923, but even that became difficult with Patricia always finding something to criticize. The house, once my sanctuary, felt like a battleground. Evan, too, had changed. He was no longer the attentive, loving man I married. Instead, he was distant, cold, and often short-tempered. It felt like I was living with two strangers instead of the family I had hoped to build. It was a quiet evening, or so I thought. I had just finished a long day of cleaning and errands, and finally sat down to watch Yellowstone, 1923, my favorite TV show. The strong female characters gave me a sense of empowerment, a brief escape from the tension in the house. I could finally relax, even if just for an hour. As the episode played, I heard footsteps approaching. Patricia walked into the living room, her expression colder than usual. She positioned herself in front of the TV, blocking my view. "We need to talk," she said, arms crossed. "It's time you transfer the deed of this house to Evan's name. It's his right as your husband." Her words stunned me. "Excuse me," I said, sitting up straighter. "This house is my inheritance. It was my father's legacy. I'm not transferring anything." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "You're selfish, Leela. This house isn't meant for you to hoard. A woman's property belongs to her husband. Stop pretending it's yours to control." I stood my ground, my voice firm. "This house is my home, Patricia. My father built it, and it's his legacy. I won't give it up." She let out a sharp laugh. "Ungrateful," she muttered. Then, turning her head, she shouted, "Evan, come here." Evan walked into the living room, looking tired but composed. Patricia wasted no time and leaned in to whisper something to him. Whatever she said made his face twist with anger. His eyes darkened, and his jaw tightened as he turned to me. "Why are you always making things difficult?" he demanded, his voice sharp. "Just transfer the house, Leela. Stop being so stubborn." I stood, my heart pounding. "Evan, you know how much this house means to me. It's my father's legacy. I will not." "Enough," he shouted, cutting me off. His voice echoed through the room as he strode toward me, his expression filled with rage. My stomach sank as I saw his eyes dart toward the TV. "Evan, please don't," I began, but it was too late. In one swift motion, he grabbed the TV and lifted it over his head. I froze, disbelief and fear paralyzing me. Before I could react, he hurled it toward me. The corner of the heavy screen struck the side of my head, and I crumpled to the floor. Pain exploded in my skull, and I felt warm blood trickle down my temple. My vision blurred as I tried to make sense of what had just happened. "Maybe this will teach you to listen," Evan snarled, standing over me. Patricia crossed her arms, a smug smile on her face. "You don't deserve this house," she said coldly. "Get out. Leave it to those who know how to use it." I struggled to push myself up, my head throbbing and my hands trembling. "Evan, please, I'm hurt," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. But neither of them cared. Evan grabbed me by my arm and dragged me toward the front door. I begged him to stop, but he ignored my pleas. "Get out," he spat, shoving me onto the porch. "This isn't your home anymore." The door slammed shut behind me, leaving me bleeding and shaking in the cold night. The cold air stung my face as I sat on the porch, clutching my bleeding head. My hands trembled as I fumbled to pull my phone from my pocket. Through the haze of pain and disbelief, one thought kept repeating in my mind: I need help. I scrolled to my brother's number and pressed the call button. My heart pounded as the phone rang. "Pick up, please," I whispered, my voice shaky. "Leela?" Ryan's voice came through, sharp and concerned. "What's wrong?" Tears streamed down my face as I choked out the words. "Avon, he hurt me, Ryan. I'm bleeding. I don't know what to do." "Where are you?" he asked urgently, his voice steady despite the panic I knew he must have felt. "I'm outside the house," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Please, come quickly." "I'm on my way." "Stay there," Ryan said firmly before the line went dead. The minutes felt like hours as I waited, the pain in my head pulsing with every heartbeat. My vision blurred, and the chill seeped through my clothes. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to stay conscious. The sound of tires screeching to a halt snapped me out of my daze. Ryan rushed toward me, his face a mixture of fury and worry. He crouched down, gently touching my shoulder. "Leela, what did he do?" he asked, his voice tight with anger. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I pointed to my head, where blood still trickled from the gash. Ryan's jaw clenched as he helped me to my feet. "We're going to the hospital," he said firmly. "He's not getting away with this." Ryan guided me to his car, his movements careful but filled with purpose. As he drove, he kept glancing at me, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. "You're safe now," he said, his voice softer. "I won't let him hurt you again." At the hospital, Ryan stayed by my side as the doctor cleaned and stitched the gash on my head. The pain was sharp, but it was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. I couldn't believe what had just happened, how the man I married had turned into someone capable of such violence. Ryan's face was a mask of anger as he paced the room. "You're filing for divorce, Leela," he said firmly. "You're not going back to that house." "I know," I whispered, my voice weak but determined. "I can't stay with him after this." "You don't just leave him," Ryan continued. "You make him pay for what he's done." His words sparked something in me. For months, I had endured Patricia's manipulation and Evan's coldness, hoping things would get better. But now I saw the truth: they would never change. I had to protect myself, and that meant more than just leaving. It meant fighting back. After the doctor discharged me, Ryan took me to his apartment. It was small but warm and welcoming, a safe space far from the nightmare I had just escaped. As I sat on his couch with a cup of tea, Ryan sat beside me and said, "We need to expose him for what he is. There has to be more to this than just tonight." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice hesitant. "I mean, Avon and Patricia have always acted like they're above everyone else," Ryan said. "There's something off about them. If he's willing to do this to you, who knows what else he's hiding?" Ryan's words lingered in my mind. Evan had always been secretive about his work, coming home late with vague explanations and dodging my questions. Patricia encouraged his secrecy, brushing off my concerns. What if Ryan was right? What if there was more to uncover? The next morning, Ryan handed me the contact information for a private investigator. "His name's Jack Lane," he said. "He's good at what he does. Let's find out what Avon's hiding." I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Let's do it." Jack Lane, the private investigator Ryan recommended, met with us the next day. He was a straightforward man in his 40s, with a calm demeanor that put me at ease. As I explained everything, from Evan's sudden temper to Patricia's controlling behavior, Jack listened carefully, jotting down notes. "It sounds like there could be more to this," Jack said after I finished. "People like Avon don't just flip a switch overnight. There's usually a pattern." "What do you need from me?" I asked. Any financial documents, emails, or records you have access to. Even small details might help, Jack replied. With Ryan's help, I gathered what I could from my files, bank statements, receipts, and copies of old emails. I handed everything over to Jack, who promised to start digging immediately. The waiting was agonizing. Each day, I wondered what Jack might find. Memories of Evan's late-night phone calls, his vague excuses about work, and the unexplained changes in his behavior swirled in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that the man I married was hiding something far worse than I imagined. 2 weeks later, Jack called and asked us to meet him at his office. My heart raced as Ryan and I sat across from him, watching as he laid out a thick folder on the desk. I found something, Jack said, his tone serious. Evan has been embezzling money from his job as a financial analyst. He's been funneling funds into offshore accounts through shell companies. My stomach turned as Jack showed us the evidence: bank transfers, fake account names, and fraudulent transactions. This has been going on for at least 2 years, Jack continued. The scale of it is significant. Ryan's fists clenched as he leaned forward. You mean he's been stealing money while trying to take Leela's house? Jack nodded. Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Patricia's involved too. She's been helping him cover his tracks. I stared at the evidence in disbelief. The man I thought I knew had built his life on lies, and Patricia had been part of it all. Anger boiled inside me, but so did resolve. What do we do now? I asked, my voice steady. We take this to the authorities, Jack said. This isn't just personal anymore. It's criminal. Ryan and I arrived at the police station the next morning, armed with the evidence Jack had uncovered. Detective Lisa Hayes, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, met us in a private office. As I laid out the details, she listened carefully, flipping through the folder Jack had compiled. This is solid, Detective Hayes said, nodding. We've seen cases like this before. With this evidence, we can build a strong case against Evan. She assured us the investigation would begin immediately. But I need you to be cautious, she warned. When people like Evan feel cornered, they can become unpredictable. I nodded, her words echoing Jack's earlier warning. As much as I wanted justice, fear lingered in the back of my mind. What would Evan do when he found out? A week later, Detective Hayes called with an update. We've gathered enough evidence to make an arrest, she said. We're taking Evan into custody today. The news sent a wave of relief through me. For the first time, I felt like the nightmare might finally be ending. That evening, I received another call from Detective Hayes. Evan is in custody, she confirmed. He didn't resist, but he's denying everything. I wasn't surprised by his denial. It was typical of him to play the victim. But knowing he was behind bars gave me a sense of safety I hadn't felt in months. The court case moved quickly. Evan was charged with embezzlement, fraud, and assault. Patricia's involvement was also exposed, though her role was smaller than Evan's. Testifying in court was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. I recounted the night he attacked me, the months of manipulation, and the betrayal that cut deeper than any physical wound. My voice wavered at times, but I refused to let him silence me again. The prosecution presented Jack's findings: bank statements, fraudulent transfers, and evidence of Evan's offshore accounts. Piece by piece, they dismantled his facade. Evan's defense tried to paint me as a bitter wife seeking revenge, but the overwhelming evidence made it clear who he really was. By the end of the trial, his confident demeanor was gone, replaced by anger and desperation. The verdict came swiftly. Evan was found guilty on multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement, as well as assault. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison. As the gavel struck, a weight lifted off my shoulders. He couldn't hurt me anymore. The days following Evan's sentencing felt surreal. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of safety, but the scars he left, both physical and emotional, would take time to heal. I moved out of Ryan's apartment and into a small one-bedroom in downtown Portland. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every corner of the space was a reflection of me, free from the shadow of Evan and Patricia. I threw myself into my freelance writing work, using my pain as fuel to create. My clients appreciated my focus, and soon more opportunities came my way. My confidence slowly began to rebuild, one project at a time. Ryan remained my anchor. He visited often, helping me furnish my apartment and keeping me company on nights when the memories threatened to overwhelm me. He refused to let me face this alone. One evening, while organizing my belongings, I found a photo of Evan and me from our wedding day. I stared at it for a long time, remembering the man I thought I had married and the promises he made. But those memories no longer hurt, they strengthened my resolve. With a steady hand, I tore the photo in half and threw it away. The house, my father's legacy, remained untouched. Evan and Patricia's attempts to take it had failed, and it stood as a testament to my strength. Though I no longer lived there, I made plans to renovate it and turn it into a space that honored my father's memory, a space for healing and new beginnings. Each day, I reminded myself that I was no longer the person Evan tried to control. I had survived, and I was free to create a life on my own terms. Weeks turned into months as I settled into my new life. The nightmares about Evan grew less frequent, replaced by a quiet determination to rebuild. My work flourished, and I began to take on larger projects, slowly regaining the confidence that Evan and Patricia had tried to strip away. Ryan remained my greatest supporter. On my worst days, he reminded me of how far I had come. "You're stronger than you think, Leela," he'd say, his voice steady and reassuring. "You proved that by standing up to him." One evening, Ryan and I celebrated my new life with a quiet dinner at a small Italian restaurant. Over plates of pasta, we talked about the future, not the past. As we clinked glasses, Ryan raised his in a toast. "To your freedom," he said, smiling. "To my freedom," I echoed, feeling a genuine smile spread across my face. It was a moment of peace I hadn't felt in years. Back in my apartment, I reflected on everything I had endured. Evan's betrayal had been devastating, but it didn't define me. I had found strength in the darkest moments, and with Ryan's help, I had reclaimed my life. The house, my father's legacy, stood as a symbol of resilience. I had survived the worst, and now I was ready to honor his memory by living a life filled with purpose and hope. Freedom, I realized, wasn't just about escaping Evan's control. It was about rediscovering myself and building a future on my own terms. And as I looked ahead, I knew I was finally free. Thank you for watching this story about resilience, courage, and rediscovering independence. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a like to show your support. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your opinions or similar experiences in the comments below. Your voice matters and could inspire others who are going through tough times. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story. Your engagement helps us continue sharing these meaningful tales. Thank you for being part of our community, and we'll see you in the next video.